Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard crossover dress deck profile for post-Raging Flames against Emerald Storm. This is the support we got in the latest Cardfight Vanguard booster set, giving us a new grade 3 crossover dress unit that is able to perform drive checks on the rear guard, along with a few new prayer dragons that help with the overall playstyle, which is to retire as many of your opponent's rear guards as you can to gain full access to your crossover dress abilities, meaning able to make use of the older crossover dress units that we have that help with retiring, definitely do help with the overall playstyle and pressure you can get with Nirvana Jiva. Also being able to restand those units to hit for more attacks and potentially retire more and more of your opponent's cards, while also being able to build up the soul charge needed to soul blast for those crossover dress units. Let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the ride deck, our starter is Surprise Egg, the standard when rode upon. If you went second, draw a card. Our grade 1 is Heart Pounding Blaze Maiden, Reno, when rode upon by a Snuggling Blaze Maiden, Rayu. Search your deck for up to one Trickstar and call it to rear, and shuffle your deck. So it just gives you a potential Trickstar booster, because then when you crossover dress, they go on to the circle that you need for your crossover dress unit. So you can always just place the Trickstar behind your Vanguard. The grade 2 is Snuggling Blaze Maiden Rayu. When it's rode upon by Chakrabarthi Phoenix Dragon Nirvana Jiva, you look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to one Prayer Dragon from among them, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck. So it gives you search power, especially with the new one being very important for the retire power, our Break Equip Dragon or Bargo. You definitely want to add this to your hand as quickly as you can, with our main grade 3 being the Chakrabarthi Phoenix Dragon Nirvana Jiva, along with the copy we are running in the ride deck. We're also running 3 additional copies in the main deck. On Vanguard Circle, once per turn, you discard a card from your hand, choose up to one Trickstar and up to one Prayer Dragon unit from your drop zone, and call them to rear. So the crossover dress normally would minus you a card, but at least with Jiva, you can make up for it by just getting rid of one card to call 2 back onto the field. And when this unit attacks, you can counter +1, choose one of your rear guards with crossover dress state, and stand it. So to have that multiple attack option, being able to attack with 4 units in total, and the big plays come down to being able to restand your go-to grade 3s, which are the main units we'll play with the crossover dress play thanks to set 7. For the other grade 3s, I'm running 4 copies of Brilliant Equip Bram Virena. You need one Trickstar and one Prayer Dragon for the crossover dress. On the rear guard during your turn, if this unit is in crossover dress straight, it gets plus 10,000 power, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, another plus 10,000. So if you Persona Road, it could be potentially 43,000 if your opponent is at a grade 3. And once per turn, on rear, when this unit attack hits the Vanguard, if this unit is in crossover dress state, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's columns and retire all of the opponent's units in that column when the attack hits. So even if your opponent blocks the first one, if you can restand this card with Nirvana Jiva and that attack hits, you can at least have that other potential retire of an opponent's entire column, clearing out what you need for your next go-to unit, which is the newest unit from set 7, and that is the Flaring Cannon Equip Bard Virena. Now I only have 2 copies. I am slowly replacing the Garou Virenas just because this is a much more pressured card against your opponent. So you do want to run 4 copies of this card. You need one Trickstar and one Prayer Dragon unit. If this unit is in crossover dress state, you can Soul Blast 2, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and retire it. This comes down to the soul charging that I mentioned before as well. And when this unit is in the crossover dress state, attacks a Vanguard, this unit gets plus 2,000 power until the end of that battle for each of your opponent's open rear guards. Then if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, counter +1 until the end of that battle. This unit gets drive -1 and performs a drive check. So having a rear guard that can perform a drive check is that pressure that I was speaking about. Being able to reveal any of your drive checks and get a trigger off of a rear guard, along with having the Nirvana Jiva, makes it all the more scary for you to potentially get an over trigger, or even just something that can hit against your opponent. So you definitely want 4 of this card, just being able to easily crossover dress it, just like the other units in the deck. There's no specifications like a lot of the original overdress cards that needed maybe like a unit in overdress state already. You can just have 2 of your cards thanks to Jiva and call this card to the rear, and having the Soul Blast power to retire your opponent's units. Moving on now to the grade 2s, I run 3 copies of Vils Virena. This is an add back power when in the crossover dress state, being able to add another crossover dress unit aside from Vils Virena back into your hand. And it also cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects, and it gets plus 5,000 power continuously and shield plus 10,000. So it makes it that much more difficult for your opponent's units to hit it, since it's constantly in a 15,000k state. And also just a great interceptor for you to block your opponent's cards, being able to hit that 28k guard against a good number of cards your opponent may have. The other grade 2s that I run in the deck, I do want to run 4 copies of Embargo. I have one of the new Prayer Dragon Vulsible, which can be a good replacement that you run in the deck just because it can call out grade 1s onto the field, so potentially other Prayer Dragons from your drop zone for you to use as well. With Break Equip Dragon Embargo, when this unit becomes an original dress, you can Counterblast 1, Soul Charge 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and retired. So it does cost a Counterblast, but you also are able to retire one of your opponent's rear guards and build up the Soul Charge needed for you to retire additional cards with your Roar Virina or even your go-to Bram Virina. That Soul Charge is very important because then you just have this card that can clear out a rear guard and that other crossover dress card to clear out one more. And that is it for the grade 2s. For the grade 1s, I'm running 4 copies of Flash Equip Dragon Bramada. When it becomes an original dress, you can Counterblast 1, draw 2 cards, choose a card from your hand, discard it. It's just a good way to mill through the deck and get to more vital cards that you need into your hand for you to use. Having that draw and discard power as well can set up other crossover dress cards in your drop zone for you just to add back to your hand with cards like Vil's Virina. And the other grade 1s that I run in the deck, I'm running 3 copies of Sparkle Rejector Dragon and 1 copy of Elementaria Sanctitude, just for the additional blitz order to use, being able to get around some of the restrictions for cards you can guard with, and also for the fact that if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive, you can just be placed without paying the discard cost. And for the grade 0s, I'm back to running the 4 Trickstar just for the consistency of being able to hit this unit. You can get the first additional one off of your call with your grade 1 in the ride deck, but you still want to have those additional numbers. If one gets in the damage zone, then you're just down another unit for you to use. So at least having that one other one in the numbers that I'm running means a better chance for you to get this card into your hand, because you do want to have 2 units in crossover dress straight, whether it be Bram Virina and its retire power, and then the pressure you get with your new go-to unit, your Bar Virina, for the drive check power on the rear guard. Just needing to use that Soul Blast power and the Counterblast 1 to do so. And for the trigger units for the grade 0s, I'm running 8 critical, so 4 of the Burning Flail Dragon and 4 of the Blaze War Monk Sogyu. Just the critical pressure with your rear guard being able to perform a drive check is what's so important about this pressure. Having that drive check along with the potential over trigger makes it all the more worth it, since you could get a critical off of the twin drive and then the additional critical off of your rear guard for all that pressure. And I also run the 3 draw triggers since I was maxing out the criticals. This is where I drop the 1 count. You still have plenty of draw with your crossover dress and your prayer dragons to use, so I'm not too worried about hand consistency because of this. And lastly, the 4 heal. I do have 4 copies of Blaze, Maid, and Rayane. If you wanted to run any of the ability triggers, you can always just take out 2 copies of this card for 1 of each of those triggers, with our over trigger being the Dragveda, Dragon Empire, Restander. If you get this off of the Prayer Brower Virina and being able to restand your Vanguard, just means more drive checks, so a total of 5 drive checks in total, thanks to your rear guard performing the 1, getting this card, restanding your Vanguard, and your Vanguard attacking again. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, very happy with the new support. It adds to what crossover dress needed for more pressure as a deck as a whole, being able to clear out your opponent's rear guards along with giving your own a drive check. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.